خب از تلویزیون فردا یک بار دیگه خوش آمدید به برنامه تلویزیون فردا. امشب یک مهمان بسیار بسیار ویژه داریم امشب در تلویزیون فردا. خب امیدوار هستم اگر تلویزیون فردا را تعقیب کرده باشین، مصاحبه با ایشان قبلا هم داشتیم و امشب خب در باره مولتیکالچرالیسم یا همون موضوعات چند فرهنگی با وزیر فدرال استرالیا که خب در فعلا فکر می‌کنم در کامرا باشن صحبت میکنیم. خانم دکتر آنربل الی ام پی، ایشان جدیداً به عنوان وزیر مولتیکالچرال در استرالیا انتخاب شدن. البته اولین بار است که خب همچین یک سمت در پارلمان فدرال استرالیا بالاخره معرفی میشه و همچین یک وزارت معرفی میشه و ایشان وزیر چند فرهنگی میشه. همه ما شما میدونیم در این اواخر خب موضوع چند فرهنگی و مهاجرت و ایدافا یک موضوع بسیار داغ رسانه‌ای هم شده و بالاخره با تظاهرات هایی که برگزار میشه ما شاهدش هستیم و بالاخره میریم با خانم وزیر یک سر صحبتی می داشته باشیم که خب چی پلانا دارن، از کجا شروع شد و چرا یک وزارت خاص به نام چند فرهنگی و یا مولتیکالچرالیسم افتتاح شده. با ما باشید.
Since the dawn of time, spices have brought delicate and delicious flavours to our kitchens. And few spices are as rich and savoury as saffron. If you want the best and most delicious family meals, then you need Slim Saffron. Slim Saffron boasts tremendous benefits. It's a powerful antioxidant which protects your cells and has been proven to help reduce appetite and treat the symptoms of depression. Not only that, but Slim Saffron is non-GMO, gluten-free and vegan. It has no additives or preservatives and has been ethically sourced, so it's good for your family and the earth. What are you waiting for? Experience the deep flavour and colour of premium saffron. Give the gift that brings families together at an unbeatable price. Give Slim Saffron. Order now by going to www.slimsaffron.com.au. Slim Saffron, for the discerning palate.
Dear Honorable Minister, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Farda TV.
Alaikum assalam, Fahim, and assalamu alaikum to all your viewers on Farda TV. It's wonderful to join you again.
Thank you so much, Minister. It's been a long time now. Obviously, it's the last 1 year. I think the last sort of interview we had was July last year. And since then, happening a lot of things is going to has been changed. And obviously, I did in my intro in Persian language before about how all the changes happen, and there is a ministry under the name of the multiculturalism or multicultural minister. Can you please give us a little bit more information on that?
I understood in your intro, I understood the word wazira, which is the same as in Arabic. So I picked that up from your intro, Fahim.
Yeah.
You know, Fahim, it's actually quite an incredible moment in Australian history because it's the first time that a government has a Minister for Multicultural Affairs in the cabinet. That is such a testimony to the dedication that this government has to progressing multiculturalism in Australia. So not only do we have now a Minister for Multicultural Affairs in the cabinet room, we also have, we established in July this year, the Office of Multicultural Affairs, or the Office for Multicultural Affairs, I should say, at the federal level as well. And that hasn't been around for a very long time either. So it's a real moment of opportunity, with a government that recognises how important multiculturalism is for Australia. To take advantage of this opportunity, and let's progress together, hand in hand, our ideas of what multiculturalism means and the impact that it has on our lives.
Very true. Minister, I was listening to a couple of your interviews and obviously media release. you're talking a lot about the Australian characters in multiculturalism. It's very strong word. I mean, when we see these days, can you please elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, all you have to do, Fahim, is look around you, right? Australia is a country of migrants. In our national anthem, we talk about for those who've come across the seas. In that song that, I am, you are, we are Australian, we say we are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. Right? Multiculturalism, when it was first introduced in Australia in the 1970s, it was a policy, and it was about allowing people who came to Australia as migrants to retain some of their cultural heritage and their traditions. But it also introduced the establishment of SBS, for example. And I remember as a child when multiculturalism was introduced and we first got SBS, my family was so happy. My parents were so happy because they were like, oh, we can watch television in Arabic. Unfortunately, it was the same Arabic film, Egyptian film every week on SBS, and we got pretty tired of it pretty quickly. But since multiculturalism has really progressed in Australia, we now we've had for a long time, but you think about your children, I think about my children, grandchildren.
Generations coming, yeah.
Generations to come, what is their role in multiculturalism? Where do they fit in when we talk about multiculturalism? So when we talk about multiculturalism being about the character of our nation, it's about moving it away from this concept of it just being a policy to actually being a description of who we are as a mature nation, understanding and accepting that we are, by our character, by our identity, we are multicultural.
Is very interesting, Minister. It's just need to go from here to middle of Australia to see the roots of the the only one I know a lot about that did the research is the Afghan Cameleers and the history of them, to know. I always talk with the Muslim kids and Muslim youths that you need to know how belong you are in this country. And that is something we are really appreciate, that to see the multicultural ministry is establishing there. Minister, can you please give us a bit about your vision on this?
My vision on this is, when I say that multiculturalism is our character, it's part of who we are, it's also about making multiculturalism really relevant to second and third and fourth generation migrants as well. Yeah, cultural celebration, celebrating our heritage, celebrating our traditions, celebrating our food, our dance, our music is really important. But for too long, multiculturalism has only been about that, right? About the festivals and the fun stuff, and it's lovely and it's great and it's all good. But really, when I talk about multiculturalism, I talk about multiculturalism being about Australia being a country where every person, no matter where you were born, no matter where your parents were born or where your grandparents were born, every single person has an equality, is treated with equality and fairness, has a sense of belonging, a sense of identity that they are Australian, and a sense of belonging that they are Australian, and the ability to participate fully in Australian life, in our social life, in our political life, in our economic life. Now, that part of it means that, if there are barriers to that, then we need to address those barriers, whether those barriers are in the form of discrimination or racism or structural barriers to full participation of every Australian. On the sense of belonging, for young people, and I grew up, I'm a migrant. I came to Australia when I was 2 years old. I remember my teenage years. I remember going, am I Australian or am I Egyptian? And having the pressure of your family saying you're Egyptian, but also having the pressure of your society, how to be Australian and Egyptian, how to live in two worlds, how to do that with a sense of belonging in your world, in Australia. And so that, I think, is really important to second generation migrants as well, and to the youth as well. And really the principle of fairness. If we accept that multiculturalism is our character, that it is by the way, just who we are as a nation, then the concept of fairness must apply to every single person, regardless of
Mhm.
where they were born or where they come from or their family comes from.
Minister Aly, I think you have a very big job in front of you. It's a lot to talk, and we can see every day what's happening in Australia, especially recently. And well, I mean, I have more questions, but I just want to know why the government established this office. I mean, is this something that why is that? I mean, can you please give me an answer on that?
Yeah, I think it's because it's time that we reimagined multiculturalism. And I think we have a government and a prime minister in Anthony Albanese who gets it, who understands that we need to reimagine multiculturalism. You know what happened a couple of weeks ago for him with the marches?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
reminded that it wasn't that long ago that we had Reclaim Australia marches. I'm reminded that it wasn't that long ago that we had the Cronulla riots. Yeah. And I'm consistently reminded that every now and then this is an issue that erupts in Australia.
Mhm.
Why? Why does it continue to erupt? Right? Why are there some things that we accept? For example, my father came from Egypt. He was an
Mm.
engineer. He was an engineer, but he worked as a bus driver in Australia. And today I meet people who migrated from countries, Afghanistan, from any country in the world, who are working as drivers, who are working in, and who have qualifications. And if we tapped into those qualifications, it would add $6 billion to our Australian economy.
Mm.
What I mean when I talk about fairness, this is what I mean about multiculturalism being about everybody being able to participate in every part of Australian life. Now, in order to do that, we have to have a focus, and that's why we have an Office of Multicultural Affairs. The
Mhm.
Office of Multicultural Affairs will do this kind of policy work. We'll explore what these barriers are. We'll look at a framework for reimagining multiculturalism so that we can achieve this vision that I've articulated to you.
Mhm. Talking about the recently what's happening in Australia, obviously, when you're speaking with the young people, they are sort of lost in between. I mean, they're born in Australia, lots of them, but when they see this stuff and they just thinking who they are and why this is happening, obviously they think they're migrants' kids, but they think that, well, I was born here. I had a couple of conversations on this, Minister, and I think it's very timely to see this sort of ministry and is actually doing something for the multicultural community. It's very much needed at the moment.
Thank you for him. I agree. And I think that, you know, what it does is it makes people question their sense of belonging. You might feel Australian, you grew up in Australia, you were born in Australia, but you still don't feel that sense of belonging when you see people marching in the street and you know that it's because of or you at least that's the perception that you have, is that it's a
Mhm.
personal affront to you. And I think that's something that we need to work on. But I do want to make the point that governments can only do so much, right?
Mm.
We can legislate, we can have laws, we can have policies, we can have programs. But at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about people. And every single one of us has a part to play in this.
Mm. I think you come to my next question. Obviously, I just wanted to ask, what is the measures? What sort of measures the government want to take to tackle all these issues? You talk a lot of good stuff. I mean, and as I can see the difficulties behind this in this country. What sort of measure could tackle this, Minister?
Well, I think one of the most important measures that we can do is tackle racism. Okay.
Mm.
And when I talk about racism, I don't just talk about direct racism, because when you face direct racism, you have power. To an extent, you have power and you have agency. So if I'm walking down the street and somebody stops and tells me to go back to my own country or yells at me, I have a choice. I can
Mm.
yell back, which I probably wouldn't do. I can laugh at them, which I might do, or I can walk away, which I would probably do as well. But when you face racism in a systemic way, when it's in your workplace or in your place of study or in the structures that govern you, right? you're powerless. You don't have that power. So one of the things that we have is we have a national, or we said we would develop a national anti-racism strategy. And I want that anti-racism strategy to not just focus on direct racism and changing attitudes towards particularly migrants who come from countries where, non-Western European countries, quite frankly. And so we have, we'll do work on an anti-racism strategy. We have the reports from the Islamophobia envoy and from the anti-Semitism envoy that will look at what we can do within those two reports, how we would respond to those as well. We also have, a whole lot of multicultural grants as well. So we are still, encouraging multicultural communities to celebrate their diversity and as a way of valuing it as well. And we know that those kinds of cultural celebrations are still incredibly important, particularly around passing traditions on to the youth. We're also funding community language schools, which is also incredibly important for identity for young people as well. So there's a whole range of things that we are doing, and many more things that we are in the process of doing as well. The other one, of course, is looking at migrant skills and qualifications recognition. What are the barriers to that? Where can we make improvements there as well to ensure that, Mohammed the neuroscientist isn't out there driving an Uber for a living, right?
Very true. Yeah.
So there is a lot of work to do. But, Fahim, I've worked in multicultural affairs, and I've had an interest in this area. I've written about it as an academic for 3 decades now, for 30 years. And I'm excited that we finally have a government that is willing to put in the hard work to actually move the dial.
Very important. I absolutely agree. When I heard that this is actually happening, I was super excited. And obviously, since 15 years I'm in Australia, or 16 years now, we always been into the field of multiculturalism, one side or another, as a community member, community leader, media personnel, all of these things. There are big gaps you always can see there, especially when they come to the definitions of it, especially when it comes to talking about multiculturalism, cold community. I don't know, but we're just wondering what is actually the accurate way. I think that would be number one, if I can see something improvement on that. Or when it comes to the grant and funding, and you see the minimum possible goes to the multicultural communities or grassroots communities, and then we're just wondering why and how it could be improved better in future. Obviously, as you said, the multicultural communities are educated people, but it needs a little bit of move, even though in their own countries.
Yeah, I agree. And look, the work that you're doing, Fahim, and the work that multicultural community media does is really important. And I know that you got an award for that. So congratulations, great work. I think that's really important. Multicultural community media is incredibly important for reaching out to multicultural communities. I think, multicultural right now, we talk about culturally and linguistically diverse. It's not necessarily linguistically diverse. My children aren't linguistically diverse as
exactly,
such.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to, if we're going to talk about multiculturalism having meaning and being part of every Australian's identity, we need to move away from, still have dedicated programs for culturally and linguistically diverse. But I was at a round table the other day, and it was with a multicultural community, and someone asked the question, and they said, well, what is mainstream? What is the majority? And we looked around the room and we said, you know what? We are mainstream.
Exactly.
We are mainstream.
New mainstream, at least.
Yes, but we're always treated as semicolon and, a postscript or an afterthought or something that comes after. So, for me, a vision of multiculturalism is that where multiculturalism is no longer an add-on, but it's seen as and treated as the mainstream.
Minister, one of the other things that I think you're very passionate about is about the social cohesion. When it comes to the social cohesion, obviously, it's itself is very complicated. When you define it, what does that mean? I mean, first thing it comes to you is the sense of belonging. And obviously, sense of belonging is another thing to think of how in this situation where everything is against sometime against the multicultural or migrant people. I mean, if you can please give us a bit more, what is your vision on that and how you're going to deal with this social cohesion in this country? As I know that you said a couple of times in your interviews that social cohesion is not responsibility of the cult community or multicultural community only. Everyone should do that, correct?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there, Fahim. Social cohesion is everybody's responsibility. And every time I talk to people about social cohesion, they make it about migrant people getting on with each other. You know, it's all about the Muslims and the Jews, or, you know, the Greeks and the Italian. It's all about groups getting on with each other. And it specifically puts the responsibility onto multicultural groups, which is not the case at all. Now, the problem, I think, is that social cohesion is very poorly poorly defined, basically. But if we look at social cohesion from three aspects, right? Social cohesion is about trust between people. So the way that you trust your neighbor and your neighbor trusts you. The people in your community trust you and you trust them. Trust between people. Trust between people and the institutions that govern them. Trust between the individual and the police, for example, the individual and the government, the individual and the university or the school, any kind of institution that is the basis of a democracy. And the third one is social capital, the ability of people to participate fully in Australian life. And that is where the multiculturalism intersects. Because if multiculturalism is also about ensuring that every Australian, no matter where they were born or where their parents were born, or indeed where their grandparents were born, has the capacity to participate fully in Australian life, that's where social cohesion and multiculturalism intersect in that part, in the fairness part of it. Now, the issue is that our social cohesion is fragile. It's fragile. You know, as I mentioned before, every now and then you get these bubbling to the surface of things like these marches that we saw 2 weeks ago. Or, you know, someone will say something and, you know, there's these eruptions, right? How do we strengthen our social cohesion? You know, let's turn the mirror on ourselves. Let's look at ourselves as society and say, why is our social cohesion so fragile? Why? And then let's work at what we can do to strengthen it so that this doesn't just become part of Australian history, that every now and then something happens and people march in the streets, or, you know, a different set of migrants, you know, Greeks, Italians to begin with, you know, then the Lebanese and the Indians, a different
Vietnamese
set of get attacked, right? Like, what is it about us that makes us vulnerable to this, and how do we address it? How do we change it? Just like, how do we change the migrant story? Why is it that 55 years ago, when my father came to Australia, the migrant story was Mahmoud Fawzi, the engineer, works as a bus driver. And today, if my father migrated today, it would be the same story. Why?
Exactly, yeah. Oh, very valid point. Minister, it's very nice to talk to you, and I think the time is getting against us. But on just one point about the social cohesion and the active participation that you just mentioned before, obviously active participation in our community is really missing, and I think the fragile that you're talking about, it's very much there, and all this comes because of the society. Sometimes, like recent protest, and you know, just this is very big one, but normally systematically we see it every day. And that participation is actually lacking. And I hope you as a minister and your office can do something on that. And we are here as a community member, always happy to support it, whichever way it's possible. If you have, Minister, any other last message, please let us know.
Oh, thank you so much, Fahim, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this because I have the lived experience of it, as have you, and you know, many of your viewers, I imagine, as well. But as I said earlier, this is not a job that government can tackle on its own. It's going to take all of us. And so I appreciate what you do in not just in the media space, but as a community leader as well. And for all of those people out there, especially the young people who want to take on a leadership role or who are taking on leadership roles, this is a challenge that we all can rise to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Minister, and I wish you all the best and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Fahim.